The moment I hit my garage remote, a scream tore across the street like a siren.
Car.
He's stealing my car!
Call 911.
Somebody call 911. I turned just in time to see Linda Prescott storming out in a neon bathrobe, waving her phone like she was reporting a national emergency.
Oh, thank
Neighbors
goodness
rushed
you're here. You have
outside,
to do something
cameras
about
rolling,
this.
all eyes locked on me and the BMW glowing
We'll
under my
handle it.
garage lights. Within minutes,
He's
two
stealing
patrol
my
cars
car.
slid into the cul-de-sac, officers stepping
He
out
hacked
with
my
hands on
garage
their belts.
opener.
And the craziest part? Linda wasn't even
Time and
lying
time
about
again
everything.
that the only person
Just the
getting
wrong
arrested
part.
Here.
Most people move to a quiet suburban neighborhood hoping for peace, maybe a little weekend grilling, maybe some friendly waves at the mailbox. I moved to Maple Ridge Estates for the same reason. Wide sidewalks, tidy lawns, quiet streets. It looked like the kind of place where the only real excitement was deciding between Starbucks or Dunkin' on a Monday morning. And for a while, that's exactly what it was. My name is David Holloway. I work from home as a software consultant, the kind of job where half my day is spent juggling Zoom calls, and the other half is spent muttering at my monitor while debugging someone else's rush job. Because I'm home so much, I take pride in keeping my space organized. My garage, for example, is cleaner than some people's kitchens. Tools alphabetized, floors swept, cables zip-tied so neatly you could use the wall as a product advertisement. I like my routines. I like Kiet. But there was one thing Maple Ridge Estates had that I wasn't prepared for. Linda Prescott, our HOA president. Linda wasn't evil in the Hollywood villain sense. No thunderclaps, no ominous music, just a relentless, sugar-coated brand of control that seeped into every corner of the neighborhood. She was the kind of woman who believed property lines were more of a suggestion, who carried clipboards the way preachers carry Bibles, and who could recite the HOA bylaws with the passion of a Broadway actress. The trouble started the day I brought home my dream car. A mint-condition metallic blue 2019 BMW 5 Series I'd won at a county auction. 3 years of saving, 3 months of searching, one glorious moment of raising my auction paddle, and suddenly, my driveway looked like it belonged in a luxury car commercial. I didn't splurge often, but when I did, I made it count. Apparently, Linda had the exact same plan. Word travels fast in neighborhoods like ours, faster than Amazon Prime, slower than gossip over the backyard fence. And when Linda found out I'd bought her dream car, something in her eyes changed. Not kite rage. More like disbelief that the universe had allowed someone else to get to it first. She started showing up unexpectedly. First, with cookies store-bought, still in the plastic container, claiming it was a neighborly gesture. Then with questions. Lots of questions. How much did you pay? Do you like the color? Have you ever thought about selling it? Every time, I politely shut her down. Every time, her smile tightened a little more. By week 2, the HOA letters began. Garage door open too long. Driveway, aesthetic inconsistency. Possible reflective hazards. Suspicious automotive activities, meaning I had checked my tire pressure. It would have been funny if it weren't so obvious. Still, I tried to stay calm. I documented everything. Snapped photos, saved envelopes, and installed security cameras. I've never been the type to escalate a conflict, but I'm also not the type to lose one. Then came the morning, everything snapped. I had a client meeting downtown, so I grabbed my coffee, hit the garage remote, and watched the BMW shine to life under my LED strips. That's when Linda burst through her front door like a woman possessed, screaming that I was stealing her brand new car. I stared at her, completely stunned. She hadn't even ordered a car, she'd only saved a digital configuration on the BMW website. Neighbors gathered instantly, phones came out, sirens echoed at the end of the street. And as those police cruisers rolled up, one thought hit me harder than anything. This wasn't just about a car. Linda had crossed into territory even the HOA manual didn't have a section for. If you'd asked me a month earlier what the worst thing an HOA president could do was, I would have said something harmless, maybe sending too many emails or reminding people to roll in their trash cans. But the day Linda Prescott decided my BMW belonged to her, she revealed a level of creative chaos no rulebook could have predicted. It didn't happen all at once. It built slowly, like pressure under a cracked pipe. The first crack was the HOA violation letters. At first, I thought they were generic warnings. Maybe she'd sent them to everyone. But when my neighbor Mark mentioned he hadn't gotten a letter in years, even though his garage door stayed open so often raccoons held board meetings inside it, I knew something was off. The letters kept coming. Violation 1. Garage left open for excessive time. Reality. 7 minutes while unloading groceries. Violation 2. Unsightly vehicle storage. Reality. My car was inside the garage. Violation 3. Potential noise disturbance due to automotive activity. Reality. I checked my tire pressure at 2:07 p.m. on a Saturday. By violation 5, she accused my driveway of having oil stains that threatened neighborhood property values. The spots were so microscopic I had to zoom in on my phone like I was analyzing satellite images. Neighbors started whispering. Some laughed. Some avoided me. Like Linda had hinted, I was running a chop shop out of my garage. She even tried to talk to my mailman. I overheard her one morning through my open window. If you notice any packages labeled automotive parts going to the HOA residence, please report it. It may be part of a pattern. A pattern? Lady, I ordered a set of microfiber towels. Still, the more she pushed, the calmer I stayed. Not because I wasn't irritated, I was absolutely irritated, but because I had documentation sharp enough to cut steel. I saved every letter, every time-stamped photo, every ridiculous accusation, and then I installed high-definition security cameras. One facing the driveway, one covering the side yard, one inside the garage, aimed directly at the BMW. If Linda, the pressure didn't let up. In fact, it got worse. One evening, as I was rinsing off the BMW after a quick drive, Linda marched across the cul-de-sac, with her clipboard tucked under one arm like a sheriff about to issue a warrant. "David," she said, with a smile stretched so thin it looked painful, "I'm here to let you know the board is considering new regulations for luxury vehicles." I paused mid-rinse. Luxury vehicles? Yes, for insurance purposes. She didn't blink. Not once. I'd seen raccoons with more plausible stories. "So this rule applies to everyone?" I asked. "Of course," she said. "Funny. I don't see any other luxury vehicles on this street." Her smile twitched. "Well, the rule is forward-looking. So it applies to future cars people might buy? To keep things harmonious, yes." I set down the hose. "Just say it, Linda. The rule is for my car." Her facade cracked for half a second, just long enough for truth to peek out, then snapped back into place. "The board will vote," she said quickly. "Who's on the board?" I asked. "Currently, myself." "Ah, so a one-woman election. A dictatorship disguised as suburban democracy." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give her the satisfaction. I simply said, "All right," and watched her march away like she'd just served a federal summons. But the deeper the crack, the closer the explosion. The morning everything boiled over started deceptively peaceful. Birds chirping, coffee steaming, my briefcase sitting on the passenger seat ready for a meeting downtown. I clicked the garage remote. The door lifted. The BMW gleamed under the LED strips like a polished jewel, and then, "That's my car. He's stealing my car." Linda's voice detonated across the street. She burst through her front door wearing a neon pink bathrobe, fuzzy slippers, and a look of total hysteria. She actually sprinted across her lawn, waving her phone like she was summoning air support. "He hacked my garage opener," she screamed. "He moved my car into his house in the middle of the night." I blinked, slowly. "Linda, this is my car." "No," she shrieked. "It was delivered yesterday." "That's a screenshot from an online configuration tool," I reminded her. She wasn't listening. She was dialing 911. "He's stealing my BMW. He has tools. He's been planning this." "Tools?" "Lady, my garage is a tribute to Home Depot, not a criminal empire." Within minutes, neighbors poured out. Some in slippers, some still chewing breakfast, all with phones out, like they were filming a reality show. The suburban coliseum had awakened. Then the police arrived. 2 cruisers glided onto the street. Officers stepped out with the familiar mix of exhaustion and readiness only cops develop. One spoke to me, the other to Linda, who was sobbing so dramatically it bordered on performance art. But the funniest moment, the moment that almost made me laugh out loud, was when she handed the officer a printed proof of ownership. It wasn't a bill of sale. It wasn't a title. It wasn't an order form. It was a printout of a build-your-own BMW webpage. She'd saved her dream car configuration and thought it counted as legal ownership. The officers exchanged looks. My camera footage, paperwork, registration, and timestamps told the true story in under a minute. Linda's lies started to crumble. Her voice cracked. Her hands shook. Her story tangled itself into knots. Then she made her final, desperate move. "As HOA President, I have the legal right to requisition any property that threatens community harmony." One officer blinked. "Ma'am, that's not a real thing." "It is," she insisted. "I held an emergency vote this morning." "You mean, you voted alone?" the other officer asked. She lifted her chin. unanimously. And that was the moment I knew this day was about to become unforgettable. The moment Linda announced she'd held a unanimous one-person vote to seize my car for the sake of community harmony, even the officers couldn't hide their reactions. Officer Ramirez scratched the back of his neck like he wasn't sure he'd heard correctly. Detective Carson just stared at her, blinking slowly, like a computer freezing mid-update. "Ma'am," Carson said carefully, "you can't vote to confiscate someone's property." Linda planted her feet like a toddler, about to throw a tantrum. "I can. It's in the bylaws. Section 54, no, 47 subsection, C, community property reassignment for safety and aesthetic concerns. That's not a thing," Ramirez said flatly. "It is," she insisted, waving a binder so thick it could have doubled as a doorstop. "And this car is too expensive, too flashy, and too dangerous in the wrong hands." His hands. I exhaled sharply through my nose, keeping my voice calm. "Officers, all my documentation is in the glove box. Title, bill of sale, auction receipt, registration. And if you need footage, I have cameras covering the entire garage." Linda whipped around like I'd slapped her with a legal dictionary. "He has cameras? That's illegal. He's spying on me. That's why he knew what car I was ordering." Detective Carson raised a hand. "Ma'am, cameras on his property are legal. Cameras inside your house would not be. And I doubt that's what we're dealing with here." "But he stole my car," she wailed. "Ma'am," Ramirez said, holding up his tablet, "we ran the VIN. This vehicle was purchased at a public auction 2 weeks ago. It's registered to Mr. Holloway. Has been since the 17th. There is no report connecting this car to you." Her face froze. A microsecond of stillness before reality hit her like a truck. No, that VIN must be wrong. Check it again." He switched the plates. He hacked the registry. She turned, pointing at me with a shaking hand. "He's a criminal. I'm the president of this HOA. I know what goes on here." Carson stepped closer, voice steady but firm. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a criminal offense. Continuing to claim ownership without proof is fraud. And attempting to use HOA authority to seize personal property—" "I am the authority," she shrieked. "You are not the law," Carson shot back. That did it. The mask of confident HOA power crumbled, and Linda melted into pure panic. She spun, stumbling toward her house, curlers bouncing, slippers slipping off as she tried to speed walk away. "Nope," Ramirez muttered, stepping forward. He caught her by the arm just as one slipper shot off her foot and landed in the grass like a fallen soldier. Linda flailed, pulling against him with a strength powered entirely by delusion. "You can't arrest me. I'm the victim. He has 2 cars. Nobody with a normal job has 2 cars unless they're doing something illegal," she shrieked. Ramirez didn't even flinch. "Mom, calm down." Neighbors gathered in a loose semicircle, phones up, recording every second. Some were barely pretending not to laugh. Then came the words that ended Linda Prescott's HOA reign. "Ma'am," Carson said, pulling out the cuffs, "you're under arrest for filing a false police report, attempted fraud, and misuse of emergency services." The gasp from the watching neighbors was almost in unison. Linda's jaw dropped so far I thought it might hit the pavement. "You can't do this. I'll sue the department. I'll sue him." She jabbed a desperate finger at me. "This is my neighborhood." But the universe, or at least the judicial system, had other plans. Carson guided her toward the cruiser while Ramirez read her rights. She fought, pleaded, cried, and claimed conspiracies that would have made a daytime soap writer blush. When they finally got her in the back seat, she kicked the door twice before settling into furious silence. The cruiser pulled away. The neighborhood stayed quiet. I stood there, looking at the empty space where she'd been, stunned that the storm had finally broken. Only, I didn't know yet this was just the beginning of how badly her world was about to fall apart. In the days after Linda's arrest, Maple Ridge Estates felt strangely quiet, like the whole neighborhood was finally exhaling after holding its breath for too long. People walked their dogs slower, waved more, even lingered at their mailboxes as if rediscovering what peaceful suburban life was supposed to feel like. A few neighbors brought over banana bread and apology cookies, not because they'd done anything wrong, but because that's what suburban guilt looks like. The HOA board held an emergency meeting the next evening. Without Linda, at the head of the table, dictating fines and quoting bylaws like scripture, the room looked relieved. Even the treasurer, who had always acted like Linda's loyal lieutenant, sat hunched in her chair like someone who'd just escaped a cult. They voted unanimously to suspend Linda's authority, pending legal review, which was the polite way of saying, she's done. 2 days later, Detective Carson called. "Mr. Holloway," he said, "we've uncovered some additional information you'll want to hear." At the station, he laid a folder on the table thick enough to make a small thump. "This," he said, tapping the cover, "is why she wanted that BMW so badly." Inside were bank statements, emails, and transaction logs, all showing the same thing. Linda had been quietly siphoning HOA funds for years. Not a fortune, but enough that the landscaping budget had always been mysteriously tight, and the annual pool renovation never seemed to happen. When residents questioned community expenses, she buried them in paperwork until they backed off. "We believe she planned to use some of these funds toward purchasing a car similar to yours," Carson explained. "When she saw you bring one home first, she snapped." It made sense. Suddenly, the fake HOA violations, the obsessive surveillance, the manufactured hostility, it all looked like the behavior of someone whose world was starting to crack. By the time the trial came around, Linda had traded her pastel cardigans for a plain gray suit that looked borrowed from a relative. The neighborhood stayed quiet. I stood there, looking at the empty space where she'd been, stunned that the storm had finally broken. Only, I didn't know yet this was just the beginning of how badly her world was about to fall apart. In the days after Linda's arrest, Maple Ridge Estates felt strangely quiet, like the whole neighborhood was finally exhaling after holding its breath for too long. When she finally stood for sentencing, her voice trembled so hard she could barely state her name. "Mrs. Prescott," the judge began, "your position in the HOA gave you authority. You abused it repeatedly. You attempted to weaponize law enforcement, intimidate a neighbor, and manipulate an entire community." Linda's shoulders sagged. "For these reasons," the judge continued, "you are sentenced to 18 months in state custody, followed by 3 years of probation, and ordered to pay $62,000 in restitution, including $50,000 to Mr. Holloway." The gavel came down, and Linda let out a small, broken sound. Not anger, not even denial, just the sound of someone who finally realized the world wasn't bending to her anymore. She moved out before winter. Her house sat empty for weeks, a lonely 2-story monument to everything she'd tried to control. The new HOA one, run by reasonable human beings, began undoing half her ridiculous rules. No more driveway color inspections, no more fines for overly reflective surfaces, no more clipboard patrols. Life normalized. One crisp December morning, I brewed a mug of coffee, opened the garage, and watched the metallic blue BMW catch the sunlight just right, a reminder that all of this chaos had started because someone couldn't accept that a neighbor got to his dream before she did. Sometimes people drove by Linda's old place, slowing down, staring at the empty porch as if expecting her to burst out holding a violation notice. But nothing happened. The house stayed still. And every morning, I backed my BMW out of the garage, calm, unbothered, no police cars, no screaming, no HOA president sprinting across the street in fuzzy slippers. Funny thing is, the last thing Linda ever said to me right before they shut the cruiser door was, "You'll never park in this neighborhood again." Turns out, she was right. Because the only person who isn't parking here anymore is her.